So, part of the self realization process is letting go of your old stories. And I would hear people say that, like, I don't have a story. I don't have a story. But now in hindsight, I realized that I did. And a lot of what we tell ourselves and what we've just accepted is there's a lot of negativity attached to it. And I'm speaking from the position of where I was, which was depressed and self-medicating. So from that position, we tend to, alcohol is a depressant. Just right there just goes to show that even if something you said or did weeks ago, months ago, or years ago, when you drink alcohol, it kind of keeps that story alive, kind of keeps those moments of self-doubt or shame or guilt. It keeps those energies and emotions alive, even though logically in your mind you've gotten past them. You're over it. Well, you're not really over it, and I'm not going to get too deep into why, but because my point is part of the self-realization process was letting go of anything that was out of my control now. So all of the blame, I would blame myself for, I would even talk, like, let's say there was one time, this is semi-recent, so it's real fresh, but I remember one of the last times I drank at my ex's house. We were up giggling and just laughing and watching a movie or something, and I didn't know this until the next day, but apparently my ex's roommate couldn't sleep, and it was because we were being loud and rude, and inconsiderate. And so when I found that out, I was crushed. I was so crushed, because that's not me. I'm a considerate person. I'm thoughtful. And so I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I was guilty. And I remember thinking, because I was on this journey of, self-discovery and, being a good person, and really, really honing in on that and being the best version of myself I could be all the time. And so one of the times I had a certain criteria, and I was within my criteria of when and where and with who I could drink and with how much. And, we had like 3 tall cans, and I was just like, which is still kind of a lot actually, but, we were being rude, and for days, I even after apologizing to him to his face, and him saying, it's okay, I took a nap later, I was still holding on to this shame, like, how dare you, Stacy? That's so not like you. And so when you take something like that, and it happens all the time, it kind of becomes like this character that we kind of create ourselves. And it could be helpful, but for the most part, it's not, because we're kind of identifying as that character, as that person who's rude and inconsiderate and so on. And so later I realized that you can't hold on to these stories. You can't do, of course, so what I try to do is say, okay, what's the lesson here? What's the lesson? So that's separate now. He's forgiven you. Don't dwell on that. It's not who you are. He knows that's not who you are. So drop it. Let it go. It's not. Be more compassionate to yourself. We're human. We make mistakes. I got caught up in the moment while drinking, and that could have just as easily happened sober. Could have gotten carried away with a joke and just were loud and obnoxious. I just know myself, and I know that I wouldn't have let that happen if I hadn't been drinking. That's just one example. But when that happens, like, time and time again, we know that there's something that's got to change. And anyway, when we have a story and we identify with that story over and over again, even though it's in the past, even though it's been forgiven, we it's not healthy. It backfires on us. And so we have to let go of these stories. We have to just let go. And that took a while for me to learn how to do that. And it's still something that, I'm probably going to be challenged with in the future. But now I realize I can't allow that to define me. It's not who I am. We are human. We are going to make mistakes. We're going to, of course, we don't want those mistakes to be huge or to be a huge impact on anyone around us, but to just be more compassionate with ourselves and to not be so harsh on ourselves. And so that's something I have to practice all the time. If something comes, if I have a, case of foot and mouth, it's like, oh, just, that's going to happen too. We're human. It's okay. So I've been trying to practice not being so hard on myself and not to allow it to be part of my story, because my whole goal is personal growth, self-discovery, and making these self-realizations and applying them once I realize something to truly make it a lesson. And not so much a harsh lesson, but just a lesson, and to be kind to myself. And that's something that was really difficult at first. And, I think when that happened, this was after 9 months of making a really big change in my life. And I think that's why I was so hard on myself. It's like, Stacy, you did all this work, and now this happened. In hindsight, it was a blip, and I still actually feel bad about it. But I don't have this, actually, I had this like physiological change, like heart palpitations and loss of sleep and anxiety over it. And I know that was the remnants of the alcohol inside me. Now, I know if that same exact thing happened and I hadn't been drinking and it was a true, honest mistake, I didn't realize he was in the next room maybe, that's totally, that's totally something that can happen. I didn't realize you were home. We wouldn't have been so loud, we won't be so harsh on ourselves. I did realize now, let's say that happened 3 days ago, this would have been something I wasn't attached to at all. Just let it go. So that's something I try to practice now. It's real easy to put shame where it just doesn't belong. And it also showed me how alcohol, the chemical of alcohol, can make us dwell on something that's really not dwellable. I don't know if that's a word, but it's not something that to really, really take to heart, even though we do it. So when we're trying to grow, we're trying to expand, we're trying to evolve, this proves to me that alcohol shouldn't be in the picture at all, because it makes these really small things magnified. And so that's one part of it. Alcohol, even if it's been days, plural, will kind of magnify a situation to the extent that is so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary because there's no judgment anymore. We're only judging ourselves. So why, and so it's almost like alcohol has its own little entity. It has its own energy. It has its own, a mind of its own, which is kind of creepy. But, now once I know these things, I know if I have this remnants of guilt or shame, that it's not truly me. It's not, now I know to be more compassionate for myself. And that kind of brings me to why I don't really agree with AA. And it's because over and over again, we're having to introduce ourselves as an alcoholic and identify with a part of ourselves that we aren't too proud of or excited about. So I feel like it kind of creates this cap on personal growth, because we're supposed to be letting go of our old stories so we can now reinvent this new character that we want to be, so that we can have a brighter future, so we don't have to be so sad, so that we can enjoy and bask in the goodness of life, the deliciousness of life. So why, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Why would why we would re-identify with an old story over and over again. So that's one of the reasons I chose not to go to AA, even though I believe there's a ton of benefits of it and it does help people. I just feel like at some point it kind of taps out. And that also brings me to I guess while we're on the subject, a second reason why I don't agree with AA. And that's because when you go there or do it virtually, whatever it is, if you make that the focal point, I'm an alcoholic. No alcohol. Bad alcohol. Alcohol is terrible. Alcohol ruined my life. Alcohol brought me to where I am now. Alcohol is no good for me. Alcohol, alcohol, alcohol. It makes it the focal point. So it's like that's there. It creates this resistance of something I want, but I know I can't have. And so it almost kind of, to me, and maybe it's just the way I think or the way I feel, but it kind of perpetuates the whole situation you want to get out of. It's like, for instance, kind of like, don't think of a pink bunny, and then you're going to think of a pink bunny. So it's like your whole life starts to revolve around alcohol again. For me, I wanted out of my old identity because a lot of it was I misprioritized where alcohol belonged in my life. I don't want to make alcohol the villain here. The villain was traumas inside of me combined with alcohol, it was a perfect storm, So, if alcohol's the Antichrist, then anyone who drinks it is terrible. No, I don't think that at all. It's the combination of emotions and situations and the chemical reactions and so people become alcoholics. It's like a custom tailored scenario, their traumas with their past combined with the kind of alcohol they drank and the kind of people they hung out with, that created their perfect storm. And a lot of it was circumstantial and stuff that they couldn't help, and or things that they could, and then they didn't have the tools to rise above it. So I just don't feel like making alcohol the focal point is a way that I could abstain for a substantial amount of time. If I look inward and realize a lot of this it's well, of course in AA they talk about you too, of course, but I just feel like there's so much more work to do. Like another thing I work on is my diet. Instead of focusing on all the things I can't have, like, I know this happened with my dad after having a heart attack, and it happened with friends after having gout or any kind of blood issue or heart issue, and even me with my anxiety. They give you a list of all these things you can't have. So that becomes your focus. Like, I can't have this. And then there's that resistance. Like, it makes you feel like you're less than, or that there's something wrong with you. And that shouldn't be the focal point. It should be, look at all this yummy goodness you can have. There's so much deliciousness that's not listed here. And that's where I feel like we have a little bit of an issue, and think this can be a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. I found this journey to be so fun. Like, and no one talks about that, how much yummy deliciousness I found through not going the traditional ways. I'm a very unconventional person myself, and I'm not super traditional, and I like thinking outside the box. I enjoy problem solving. I enjoy being creative. And so I was able to, and it took a little bit, it took a little bit of work, but those challenges became fun. It's like, ooh, overcame that one, ooh, overcame that challenge, and those are opportunities to be proud of yourself. So then you're starting to build momentum on being proud of yourself. And so you're creating this new foundation of enjoying your own company, enjoying the journey, enjoying the steps you're creating for yourself, overcoming different obstacles. First obstacle will be like, what do I do with my time? I spent so much time at the bar, so much time watching TV, drinking beers. I enjoyed that, but that's complacency. That's safe zone. That's a temporary cure to boredom. But there's so much cool stuff out there. There's so much cool stuff. Old hobbies will start to kind of show themselves to you, and that becomes fun. The first couple of weeks is it's a time of transition. It's a time of self-discovery. It's a time of realizing all the dumb things you were doing and all the time wasted. I do love the community part of AA, and I'm not bashing it. I'm just saying that it didn't work for me because my therapist brought up the fact that I was able to quit alone, but I wasn't able to sustain that lifestyle alone. And that's what he wanted to see me do. And then that's when I realized that's what I want to see me do too. I want to sustain this on my own, and know when it's cool to reach out to people, and know when it's a good time to go to a group, of people. But instead of looking at groups, that perpetuate those same ideals or perpetuate negative emotions, I didn't want to live there anymore. I didn't want to relive old stories. I wanted to put them behind me. I didn't want to identify as an alcoholic, because in my heart of hearts, I know I'm not one. So I don't want to be an outcast. I want to rise above. I want to rise above these lower vibrational energies that kind of keep me down, So if I'm going to rise up, don't identify with any of that. Don't identify with any of the old story. Create new stories. I am someone who can transform. I am someone who can rise above. I am someone who can write a book. I am someone who can nurture animals. I am someone who is a part of my family. I can play a leadership role at work. I can create a YouTube channel. I can whatever. I can transform my body. I can transform my mind. I can learn new things, learn new tools. So I just feel like in self-realization, it's real important to look inward. We have access to infinite intelligence, and infinite information in the ethers. Why live in such a limited, encapsulated space? The possibilities are truly, truly, truly endless, and you are the vessel to prove that. So that's why detoxification and clearing things up, doing a cleanse is so important, is because now, instead of being a vessel for negativity and negative things to be attracted to you, and you producing negative things and negative outcomes, create a new vessel to produce beautiful, magnificent, wonderful things and energies. And then you're inspiring others to do the same thing. So without much effort, just by focusing on yourself, discovering yourself, you will just emit this beautiful energy that's always been within you, but with alcohol and substances and living in depression and in a lower vibrational field. By living there, you weren't emitting that true core of who is you, and this is again a reminder to myself, for a long time, when you're living in victimhood mentality and having these limited beliefs, like I can't do this because of this or that, or I can't do this or that, or I wish I could do this or that. Though that's a lot of that you realize after detoxing, that those are all illusions. Those aren't true, and you could do anything you put your mind to, and that's what I've learned on this journey. And now then it becomes even funner, and you really truly understand your power. We have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. And so the first step in that is letting go of that old version of yourself. It's not here anymore. You made that decision when you surrendered You made that decision when you're like, no, I'm not going down that road anymore. I'm not living there anymore. So it's gone. And that's so liberating. It's a wonderful feeling to have that, oh my gosh, I don't have to identify with my mistakes. I don't have to identify with those moments of shame and guilt and disappointment. It's right now. It's right now and forward that matter. Right this second and forward that matter. Yesterday doesn't matter. 10 minutes ago does not matter at all. It does not matter. If maybe you planted a seed 10 minutes ago, then yeah. But it's all in our perspective. It's all how we choose to look at something. And if someone gets in your way of that, it's time for them to be removed from your life. And not in a harsh way, not in a mean way. That just set boundaries. Setting boundaries. If someone reminds you of a part of yourself that you don't want to identify with anymore, it's time for them to just step aside, because a new person is coming out, and that is so beautiful. It's beautiful. And when we first start feeling that, truly embodying the better version of ourselves, we realize how unstoppable we are. And that is something no one can take away from you, as long as we get that empowerment, as long as we set that motion, as long as we start to build that momentum. And so that's why it's, again, so important to lay that foundation, lay the new foundation of you, the better version of you. Because that's what's so cool, is it's never ever complete. We're always going to be evolving as long as we have the tools to know how. And so removing these limiting beliefs is so crucial, because once we do that, we can literally do anything. And then, those things like making things right and making our apologies and making amends and things like that, that'll just come naturally. Because we've risen above so high, we've been on the high road for so long, that'll just be easy. When before it was so daunting and intimidating and I don't want to go there, I'm so scared. It's all fear. It's all fear-based. But once we remove the fear, that's a process. It's a process, but once we remove the fear of judgment, it's fine. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I don't do well in certain types of communities, is because I don't do well with judgment. A lot of people don't do with judgment. It's even just doing this, I'm making myself vulnerable. But now I feel like for a long enough period of time, I've risen above to where it's like I don't need to worry so much about other people judging me. It's because I'm being true to myself. I'm being the best version of myself I can be. I'm doing my best every day. And this best right now might be like nothing, 2 months from now. I might be like, Stacy, that was your best, really? But that'll be me judging me. And it's only for personal growth. It's only for expansion. So anyway, I'll just leave that as part 2 of self-realization, and just ending it with that wonderful, liberating feeling of knowing that we don't have to identify with our old story. It's awesome. She's gone. Okay, bye.